Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always, keyword always, betting on Black. Back once again in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan African social media extraordinaire, in the home of African Center News and Information. And we have a great show for you all this afternoon. Happy Pan-African Saturday, where we're going to be talking the importance of financial literacy, negotiating your salary, in the art of the deal, with none other than a good friend of mine, the man, the myth, the legend, that is Anthony Talbert. So very quickly, family, Anthony Talbert is the Director of Sales and National Accounts for the Fetchheimer Brothers Company. In this role, Mr. Talbert is responsible for developing and executing sales strategies for the largest and most strategic national accounts, including Gales and Kroll. Additionally, he leads the development of the Flying Cross workwear business, leveraging his brand building expertise to research market trends, target emerging customers, and establish partnerships to drive brand growth. Most recently, Mr. Talbot was with Sazerac, the world's #2 spirits manufacturer, for 2.5 years. There, he managed the company's premium bourbon, brandy, and cognac portfolios, excelling in crafting innovative marketing strategies, driving sales growth, and enhancing brand equity in a highly competitive market. At his core, Mr. Talbot has a passion for helping others achieve their goals and a natural talent for storytelling. His experience in brand management, combined with his academic and professional background, has enabled him to leverage data-driven insights to develop and execute impactful sales strategies that resonate with evolving customer needs. A Cincinnati, Ohio native, shout out to the 513. Mr. Talbot lives with his 2 dogs, Yogi and Bear. He completed his undergraduate studies at NC State University, and a bachelor's degree in advertising, public relations, and applied marketing, followed by 2 master's degrees from Ohio University. In his spare time, he enjoys playing drums at his local church. So, family, please provide a virtual welcome for the man, the myth, the legend, your favorite brand manager's favorite brand manager, none other than Anthony Tree Talbot. What's the word, brother?
Man, Bakari, man, I appreciate it, man. You know what? I appreciate you putting together that quick bio. You definitely did a great job of speaking to it. And honored to be on the platform for sure.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you here, brother. Happy to have you here. Sure. So, we're going to jump right in. I think this is an important conversation that we're going to have regarding financial literacy, negotiating your salary, and of course, the art of the deal. These aren't issues typically that you find discussed in the Black community on a macro level. We were getting at it a little bit later, but let's start with this. Tell us a little about yourself and what led you to pursue a degree in, of course, advertising, marketing, and public relations, but also a master's in public administration as well.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went on to earn my undergrad degree from NC State University, go Wolfpack. And I was blessed enough to be able to play football, with scholarship my undergrad. And the reason why I went into public relations and applied marketing and advertising is because while playing football at NC State, I recognized that a lot of the young men had physical talent, but didn't know how to manage their personal brands. Gotcha. And I saw that early in life, I had a knack for being able to speak on my behalf, speak on others' behalves, to truly be able to see the forest from the tree so I can be in it, but also I can take a step back and realize, here's how we got to navigate, here's how we got to operate to ultimately achieve our goals and get to where we want to get to.
Absolutely.
And so getting into that program initially, I saw myself being like an agent to some degree, like a sports agent. Because again, I saw a lot of great athletes, particularly Black athletes, who were phenomenal on the field, but just needed help and guidance on how to manage their personal business off the field. And I was in it with them, but like I said, I saw early on that I had a skill set to be able to lead, manage, and be able to truly run a business. And that was my avenue to do that. And then going into grad school, I earned a master's in public administration because after graduating NC State, I went on to go to Ohio University, where I had the pleasure of meeting you, Bakari. Dr. Lumumba. But I had a pleasure of meeting you, my good brother. And I tried to get into the MBA/sport ad program at OU.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
I did. And I made it to the final round of interviews. and I'm down to the last cut, and I didn't make the cut.
Okay.
And I remember, in particular, there's a young black lady who did make the program, and she was extremely upset that I didn't make it because she thought I was far more equipped, adequate, and had the tools to be successful, more so than some of our other counterparts that made it into the program. Nevertheless, I didn't get into that program, so I had to adjust, and I had to adjust quickly because I still wanted to move forward. And I met Jason Jolly, Jason Jolly, and I met him, and we had a connection through North Carolina schools. He went to undergrad, I think Tennessee, but grad school at UNC.
Right.
And so we had that connection. I told him my story and told him, what I wanted to do with my career. And he thought that, him and I aligned that a degree in public administration could still help me learn some of the administrative leadership skills and tactics needed to run an organization, if it's in the public sector or in the private sector, but just running an org in general, and having those leadership skills developed. And also some of the data analytics things that you learn in that program too as well. So it was a great next step when a door was closed in my face.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. You've been in corporate America, I would dare say, for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to pursue a career in corporate America?
So as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to get into being an agent. And directionally, an agent is your brand manager. You're managing someone's brand. And I was able to satisfy a desire to do that by getting into marketing and getting into traditional brand management. A driver for me to wanting to get into the corporate space is, again, when you're in that world, you don't see a lot of people who look like you and I. And because I've always thought that I had a natural skill set to be able to lead, learn quickly, and then apply what I've learned, I've always felt that I had a responsibility to lead in that space.
Okay.
And so when the opportunities came to continually progress my career, I started off my career at Fetchheimer Brothers Company, and I was there for 5 years. And I started off as an entry-level marketer, and I grew into being a senior brand manager. And then I got recruited by the company Sazerac to come lead some of their premium bourbon brands and other alcohol brands. And I was there for 2.5 years and did very well. And then Fetchheimer called me back and invited me back to be a director of sales and be in a leadership role within an organization. So ultimately, as a black male, I felt like I had a responsibility to leverage my skill set. And because I don't see a lot of people who look like you and I in this space, I want to go in and kill it, do well, and then ultimately get in a position to where I can have enough power and enough money to be able to reach back and pull people who look like you and I along.
Very good. Very good. Very important point there. So financial literacy. Why is financial literacy important for the Black community? And why isn't it promoted and discussed on a macro level as are other issues that are prevalent and prominent in our community?
Well, Dr. Lumumba, first and foremost, it's true. Come on. But, first and foremost, the reality is the economy is literally how the world turns. Like the world revolves around the economy. And we spent a lot of time talking about it this past election, so you can see how important it is to people. And for the Black community in particular, it's important for us to have a strong command and understanding the economy and understanding how we can do certain things to be able to impact our own personal economy and our own personal financial literacy. Because a lot of times we're the most vulnerable. And we're the most vulnerable, I would say, for two particular reasons. One, financial literacy isn't taught on a large scale in the traditional academic system. Okay. We do talk math, we talk history, we talk social sciences, but truly learning how to balance a checkbook, truly learning how to manage your finances. How do I get into a career where I can earn as much money as I can, manage that cash flow, and make sure I'm budgeting my money to have a net positive cash flow, so I'm bringing in more than I'm pushing out, and then I'm doing the basic retirement activities, i.e. 401k or other investment funds, and then Thirdly, put my money in places where I'm investing so it can grow exponentially over years. But I think that particular thing isn't taught in the school system. Um, and then secondly, the Black community is systematically oppressed.
Okay.
And so when something isn't taught in the school system and it impacts all communities alike, it's going to exponentially and over proportionately impact the Black community. And so now we almost have to correct and put us in our.
Could you give an example of that when you talk about overcorrect? Because this is a great segue because I was going to ask a follow-up question regarding. I would presume, and of course you could correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the derivatives of this issue of not having financial literacy, and Dr. Amos Wilson talks about this, is that unfortunately many in our community view being a consumer as a representation of first-class citizenship rather than someone who is a producer. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I directionally would agree. I directionally would agree with that. And to your point about being a consumer, that mentality is being a spender. A lot of times when someone historically hasn't had a lot of money or family wealth, they want to look like they're wealthy. I want to have the expensive clothes, shoes, cars, the big house. But the operative word there you said was being a consumer. And what you really want to do is be a healthy participant. And the healthy participant is consuming isn't, you shouldn't just want to buy. You want to make sure you're managing the cash flow, like I mentioned earlier, which is, again, ensuring that you're budgeting your money in a way that you're retaining more that's coming in than what's going out. So being a consumer alone doesn't make you a healthy participant. It actually puts you behind because if you're spending more than what's coming in the day, you're going to be in debt. And so the reality is, and this is really important for all the listeners here, is that it doesn't really matter how much you make. It's about how much you can save and how much you can manage well.
Okay, very good. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Well, and before we shift, you
Go ahead.
mentioned, what's a good example of overcorrecting? You mentioned that earlier, and I saw a comedy show once with Chris Rock. Now, I would consider Chris Rock to some degree, someone who integrates things that's going on in the world into his routine, his comedy show. And it was around 2008, 2009, and Barack Obama, regardless of how you feel about him, he was just elected in office. And he said that he was having a conversation with a friend, and that friend said, "Man, we're finally past racism." And Chris Rock said, Barack Obama was the best in the world at what he was doing politicking-wise to get in that position. He said that you'll know we're past racism or systematic oppression when the average guy can be average like their counterpart and still attain a position. And so right. The point of overcorrecting is that old saying that a lot of times we have to be exponentially 10 times better than our counterpart to get the same opportunity. And I think that comes all the way down to financial literacy. And so if I manage my money, on an average level, I may not have the opportunity to buy a house or retire when I would like to because I'm competing with other average people and I have to be exponentially better to put myself ahead.
Great point. So another part of this conversation, we want to discuss negotiating your salary, right? For many people, you just get a job, they tell you this is the salary, this is how much you're going to make per hour, and you accept that. You will push back against such a notion. What are the do's and don'ts regarding negotiating your salary, and how would you successfully negotiate one's salary?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that for anyone out there who feels like they're not competent enough in negotiating, like that's okay. Like it's a learned skill, and that's why we're here to talk about it. And a lot of times, in moments in our career, we're not even given opportunities to negotiate. And so, Dr. Lumumba, that's why I think it's very important for us to continue to learn it, because the further we get along in our career, there's more times we're going to be in positions to have to negotiate, and not just our salaries. I mean, I was in a position where I had to negotiate a contractor coming out and fixing my roof, and I had to negotiate that. So first and foremost, if it's a contractor fixing your roof, or if it's it's a career decision and you're negotiating your salary. First and foremost, know your worth / know the worth of the job, or like the position. So meaning, do your research. If you're doing negotiations for a new position you're going to obtain, do your research. Look at that market. So say you're looking at a job in Atlanta, Georgia. Let me look at a 50, 100-mile radius, or even nationally. What are other jobs going for with that same title? And then what's the going rate for that job in that particular market? And then pair that against the experience you have in your career. Have I spent 10 years in the field? Have I spent 5 years in the field? Do I have X amount of education? So do all that work up front to know your worth and know the worth of the position that you're negotiating for. Secondly, so that's do one. Do number two is, I often go into my negotiations with this strategy, and it's called LIM. L-I-M. L-I-M. I'll put it in the chat.
And I would presume that's an acronym.
That is an acronym.
I'm putting it in the chat. Go right ahead.
That's the acronym for like, intend, and must. And so going into it with that particular acronym, like, intend, and must, your LIM, first and foremost, it's like, if I can get anything that I would like to get, that's what I'm coming in with. Like, that's where you start. So say, for an example, you're negotiating and you've done your research. You say that, just even round number, you're negotiating for a job that's valued at $100,000. But the range is 80 to 120. And you say, okay, range is 80, 120. The median is 100,000. I would like to get 115. So you go into that negotiation, first of all, doing your research and having the ammo in your pocket to be able to articulate why you're worth 115. Start there. And then you think, well, but I know the median is 100, so I probably won't get that. So I intend on landing around 105. And so when you start at 115 and they start negotiating you down, and then okay, I'm going to land at 105. However, for me to take this role, it must at least be 100. I can't go no lower than 100. Or I'm making numbers up, right? And so that's how you would implement that negotiation tactic. And the reason why that's important is because you're not going to it and you're not going to be caught off guard. You're prepared knowing this is what I'm coming to get. This is what I would like to get, 115. I intend on landing at 105, but I can't go no lower than 100.
Right.
And so then as you're having your conversations, that's how you go into it. So Bakari, if we were to play this out, I would say, hey, Dr. Lumumba, how you doing? Thanks for the interview. It's time to talk about money. Anthony, what's your number? You know what? Thinking about all my work experience, with 10 years in the industry, and then also having a bachelor's degree and 2 master's degrees, I would like to earn 115 in this role. Mr. Talbert, I understand, but the median for this position is 100. We're looking at, so we can, the best we do is 100. I understand, but again, with my experience, I really think at least be 105. And then go from there. But what I like to do once I implement my LIM, where I feel most comfortable, is staying in my like and in my intend.
Okay.
The reason, so landing there, the reason why the must is important is because sometimes you're in a position where you have to take the job, or it will behoove you to take the job, but it also has to make sense. And so if you're in a position where, man, I really need this job, but anything below 100 doesn't make sense, sometimes you got to let it go. And so if they were pushing 90 and like that's below your LIM, you shouldn't stretch yourself past that. Like, hey, I came into it and I had my stake in the ground. In my head, I had my stake in the ground at 100. If they can't meet me there, I got to find the next best opportunity, and it won't be this one.
Got you.
And so that's a good natural segue into the one don't that I had, which is once you set your limb, never go below your must. You said that your must was 100 for whatever reason. The community I live in, the house I live in, the family I have, whatever it is, you set your must. So the one don't that I have for you in negotiations is don't go below your must.
Now, and this is a great conversation, and we're really getting into the meat. Family, make sure if you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Make sure you share and comment. Just break the algorithm. Of course, you all know you're watching themovementspeaks.com, Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. And of course, in conjunction with Beacon Line Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of Africa Center News and Information. And we're having a great conversation with brother Anthony Tree Talbert, right? He, of course, is a marketing executive. He's been working in corporate America for over 10 years, and we're discussing the importance of financial literacy, negotiating your salary in the art of the deal. So one of the things we think of, particularly in the sports industry, based on what happened earlier this afternoon, we're not going to talk about sports, right? But we hear this concept of the signing bonus. Most people may be unaware that even in the corporate space, even in higher education, if you are an administrator, high-level administrator or executive, you can request a signing bonus. Could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, and I think so that goes back to knowing, understand all the arrows you have in your quiver. Think about if you're Robin Hood or, some medieval warrior, you may have a bow and arrow and you have multiple arrows in your quiver. Know all the ammo you have that you can pull from and shoot off during the art of the deal, like you said. And so when you're thinking about, let's say you're a corporate executive and there's a couple of different points that you can negotiate on. You can negotiate on, if we're talking money specifically, let's call it base salary. So it's a good space to start in with your limb there. So, hey, we talked about the, anywhere between 120 or 115 and 110 as an example. Your base salary, you can negotiate your annual bonus structure. Hey, I want to get 10% of my annual bonus, 15, 20% of my annual bonus, and using the same framework limb as there as well. And then also the signing bonus. When we look at professional athletes, again, that's money that they get up front. It's going to be taxed, but they get that money up front. And that's almost a way the company is showing that, hey, we trust and believe in you, and we're giving you that just cherry on top to get you over the finish line to sign the deal. And I'll tell you, in the most recent experience I had to be in tune with all the arrows that I had in my quiver. Meaning signing bonus wasn't offered to me. We didn't even talk about it. Like, I had to pull it up on my own. If I didn't, that's money left on the table. And how I was able to pull it up is, as I was transitioning from my previous job, I had an annual bonus on the table. But if you leave your job before the bonus is paid out at the end of the year, we're now here in December, or December is tomorrow, we're at November to December timeline. If you leave before the end of the year, that bonus won't be paid out. And so now you take that to your company and say, hey, new company, I really want to join the organization. I believe in the mission. I'm excited about the role. Or I really think I can add value. However, what I don't want to do is leave money on the table. Meaning I'm in good standing of where I'm coming from. I performed well. I have an annual bonus on the table. And here's what that number is. Let's call it $20,000 I have on the table. If I leave right now, I'm leaving that money.
Right.
Can you work with me for us to create, a signing bonus that makes sense, so I'm not leaving money on the table? And that's how I would coach professionals to speak to that in the corporate space.
Very good, very good. So let me ask you this: you work in corporate America. There have been many discussions regarding the culture milieu of corporate America, and it's a space that is, let's say, tough to navigate for people of color, particularly people of African descent, Black people. How do you, as a Black man, navigate and excel in what many purport to be an unhealthy work environment for Black people?
End of the day, the thing I lead with is the end goal. So I don't lose sight of the mission, and I think we all have our own mission. For me, my mission is being able to have enough influence in my professional life, if it's diplomatic and political power, if it's in the workspace, if it's actual money, if it's hiring power, whatever it is, having enough influence to where I can look back and have a positive influence on my community.
Okay.
And so first and foremost is not losing sight of the mission, and then also I'm often put in positions where I have to lead, but recognizing when do I lead and when do I follow? When do I lead and when do I become second in command? Because end of the day, the thing that's priority for me is the mission, which is getting in a position where I can look back and pull forward. And so just recognizing what role do I have to play at this time, and that doesn't mean losing sight of who I am as a man, who I am as a Black man, who I am as a professional. But one thing I know for sure, the best leaders can play all roles. And so being comfortable playing whatever role that's in front of me in the moment, so I don't lose sight of the ultimate mission.
Very good. Very good. Great. Family, so what we're going to do now, we're going to open the conversation. If you have any questions for Brother Talbert, I will put the link, of course, in the chat. The link is in the description. If you want to tap in, be part of the conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. Once again, we're talking financial literacy, the importance of negotiating your salary, and of course, the art of the deal. So, and now we could start with that. As a brand manager, you make your deals on a regular basis, right, with potential clients, so on and so forth.
Yep.
If you could give us the ABCs of how to make a deal, or the 1, 2, 3s of how to make a deal, what would it be?
Same thing. Know what the end goal is. Know what your end goal is. So where do I want to net out? And then understand your constraints. Is it time? Is it resources? Is it money? Is it people? Factor all that in, and then put that back into that LIM formula. And starting back with what do I like? What do I attend? But what are my musts? So know end goal. What's your mission? What are your constraints? What are all the resources, money, time, all the things you need? And then put that back into your LIM. An example is that I was working on a deal with a large brand at the previous company I was at. And we had a ceiling on how much money we could spend for this particular partnership. But I had to put the LIM in reverse, meaning when I'm negotiating my salary, I'm going to come in with a higher number first, knowing we're going to work down. When I'm the one spending the money, now I'm coming in with that low number and then planning on working up. And so let's say the low number was $300,000 and my cap was $500,000. I start at $300,000 and then I try to find a common ground before I get to my cap. And in this scenario, I was able to do that. So again, what's your mission? What's your constraints? So in this example, the constraints was a $500,000 cap. I can't go no higher than that. So then how do I put that back into my LIM structure and communicate that to the person who I'm negotiating with? And then also a big thing, Dr. Lumumba, is the person you're negotiating with, they shouldn't feel like they just got. They shouldn't feel like, you got one over them, and vice versa. Like, the art of the deal is the dance that you and this person is having. And some of the best deals are made when there's mutual respect, and that counterpart feels like you're truly meeting them in the middle ground, and they got a fair deal on their side and you got a fair deal on your side. Now, is it always fair? No. But at the very least, they should feel that way.
Got you. Very good. Well, family, listen, the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. Tap in, be part of the conversation. You guys, Brother Talbert, any questions you want regarding financial literacy, negotiating your salary, and of course, the art of the deal. Once again, this is a brother who's been working in corporate America for over 10 years, and he has not lost his sense of self. And so this is a rather important conversation to have. You also talked about this concept of pulling back, right? Going back and bringing brothers and sisters up. Have you created a program or initiative that focuses on these issues in the community?
I don't have a program in place.
Okay.
However, when I have an opportunity to hire, um, that's what I'm looking for first, is being able to hire someone that comes from my community. And again, the reason why I say that is because going back to the comment that Chris Rock made, that you have to be 10 times as good to get the job 10 times less than where you are. I recognize that I can only have but so much influence. And so opposed to trying to rack my brain and change the world, I try to change, what's around me first, and plant that seed so that seed can be amplified and multiplied and pushed forward. So no programs in place in particular, but the several opportunities I've had to hire folks, I would say at least 80% of my hires, they're qualified, but I do work to look back and hire forward.
Absolutely, and of course, even people you partner with. I mean, I was in one of the commercials, right?
Yes, you were.
Yeah, so absolutely, right. So we got a question from Max, and of course, Max, you could tap in, be part of the conversation, probably make the conversation easier. What are the alternatives outside of saving money in a traditional bank?
I won't pretend to be an expert, but one thing I would say, Max, I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for, but one thing I would say is that the basic thing you should do is, yes, save your money, but the ultimate goal is have that money work for you and make money for you while you're sleeping. And so one of the best alternatives to saving money is, once you have that money saved, invest it back into something. If it's a mutual fund, if it's a Roth IRA, if it's the stock market, if it's real estate, but investing that money back into something, and making good investments, but investing it back into something. So opposed to you making $1, saving $1, is making $1, investing that dollar, and having at least $2 back.
Very good. And we see here, Mr. Sandman states that block culture in the media promotes being irresponsible with our finances and fighting each other until we get that under control. We can't thrive. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Black culture in the media promotes being irresponsible with our finances and fighting each other until we get that under control. We can't thrive. I agree. The first sentence for sure, that the black culture promotes being irresponsible. Again, some of the people who haven't historically had money, they want to look like they have money. And so that means buying the most expensive shoes. If it's, I won't even name brand, but buying the most expensive shoes, buying the most expensive clothes, buying the big jewelry that you can't even wear around your neck. And so now you look like you have money, and maybe you did at first to buy it, but now you don't have any money to invest in, and definitely no money to retire on. And I agree, with that gentleman, that our culture promotes that. And a lot of times we see it, even in the dating space. We could be in the dating space, and a young man is working to pursue a young woman, and because he doesn't have the most expensive car, the biggest house, or jewelry, now she's not interested. I'm not saying that's across the board, but that we see it sometimes.
Well, yes, we do see this being promoted publicly.
Yeah, and so now she's not interested, and he's like, really, I'm just being responsible with my money. Either I saved it, or, to Max's point, I invested it somewhere else that wasn't the traditional bank. And so my money is tied up in things that's making me money down the line, and I'm trying to be as responsible as I can with it, opposed to just buying frivolous things because I'm peacocking, and being a peacock and fluttering my feathers to attract someone.
Absolutely. Of course. So Mr. Sandman, he's in here in the house. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? Happy Pan-African Saturday.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sandman, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, this is a litany of topics that we can address when it comes to our finances of African Americans. The one question that I have, and I've never really worked for a black-owned company, aside from the one time when I was really young, still in high school,
Mhm.
and a friend of mine, or my aunt, as a matter of fact, she had introduced me to a friend of hers who had like a carpet cleaning business in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and they just paid me to go around the city cleaning the carpets, or doing the carpet cleaning services throughout all of the hotels in the city. So
Mhm.
they had like a huge project with that. But other than that, I never really had any experience with dealing with African American entrepreneurs on a regular basis. So it's going to be
Mhm.
interesting. Presently, my whole life, during my adult life, I've only worked for uh, either the government, which I work for now, or like a big time corporation, which is normally run by white people in general.
Mhm.
Well, I'm about to retire from the employment now, and I'm interested in maybe moving into. Definitely interested in moving into corporate America, and maybe even negotiating some business dealings with African American companies. One of the questions that I have is I found like over the years is that if you ask for a certain price, then you have to produce the work that you produce has to be uh, has to match the price that they're paying you for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So if say for instance, if I don't know, if I work for a small business and they pay me to bring in a marketing for um uh their company, and since I've been working there, X amount of dollars has been produced or has been gained in the company's revenue based on the marketing prowess that I've brought to the company.
Mhm.
But that that percentage of or that percentage that I've added to the revenue of the company, um at what point is it good for the company to have me as opposed to just replace me? I don't know if I asked that question correctly.
I think I follow. Well, first and foremost, congratulations. You said you were going to retire soon,
Yes.
so congratulations on that. Secondly, were you in the military in the past?
Yes.
You were in the army.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Um, you know what? One thing I heard you mention was if an employer hires you and they're paying you a certain salary, they're going to expect a certain output of work. Um, I think end of the day, you have to uh, do your research and understand if you request a certain salary range or payment for a job, um, you do have to deliver. So first and foremost, you have to deliver. And then if you request a certain range, do your research and understand like what the job is valued at. And that can be a quick Google search. Say for example, you're a contractor. I know you're talking about marketing, but let's say for example, you're a contractor and you're putting in carpet floors. And you can may say, hey, carpet floors normally range from $2 to $11 per square foot. Um, then you have to go back and look at your years of experience. Hey, I only got 3 years of doing this. I may not be able to command $11 per square foot, but I have 3 years of experience, and here's the work. I have examples of work I've done in the past. I can command a $5 or $6 range for that particular job. Do your research. Know how your work experience and your successes can command a certain monetary request. Um, that's point one. The other thing I think I heard you ask was if you are a contractor, I think for marketing, um, at what point could they replace you and maybe hire someone full time or like outsource? Is that what you're asking?
Well, like say for instance, I'm looking at it from the CFO's, or the chief financial officer's point of view.
Right.
If he says, okay, my company brings in, let's say $1 million annually,
Okay.
and out of that $1 million annually, he pays they pay their employees, I don't know, let's say $300,000
Mhm. Right.
in salary over the
Yeah.
year, and then they
That's
also
doing
have
the
to pay
overhead,
like,
right?
yeah, and then they also have to pay a certain amount of money for taxes or what have you. And
Okay.
let's say out of that percentage of 1,500,000 is left over, and they want to increase the value of their company or revenue over the years time, how much of that excess money would be expected to uh, allocate for whatever mission that you're doing that a company feels is worth them profiting off of, as opposed to if they could just hire anybody that could do your job. Like I don't have you ever run a business where as though you cut it up in percentages like that, where you say this job is worth this percentage of my revenue, so on and so forth?
Yeah, Sam, man, that's called budgeting. Um, and when you look at the annual operating plan, if you look at a company's annual operating plan, they're going to say, here's a number we have to revenue, like here's a number we got to bring in top line, and then from there, here are the investments we have to make to keep the company running. If that's buying material, if that's marketing and advertising, if that's supporting sales. And then finally, here's the SG&A. SG&A is overhead. That's buying equipment. That's salaries. That's healthcare. And then from there, a company who's operating optimally, they're going to still be in the black, and so they're going to have some money left over that they then can put into a bucket, which is probably going to pay out bonuses and or any type of incentive plan. So if I were you, I'm not sure in this scenario which role you're playing, but I wouldn't necessarily put myself in the shoes of the financial officer. I would know that that's how he's thinking. We got our revenue, and then we have all the things going out from investments, marketing, sales, buying components, and then finally we have our SG&A. That's buying equipment, which is like laptops or office equipment, salaries, healthcare, and then finally we want to net out in the black. But that's how they're going to think. What you have to do as a business leader is saying, end of the day, it's not my job to know how you're running your business and what in the black means for you. This is what my service means. And so if you want my job, if you want me to do a service for you, go into it with that limb mentality. Here's what I would like to get. Here's what I intend on getting. I can't go anything below my must. And you don't give them that all up front. You naturally work through that throughout the conversation. But you go into that with that mentality. If you've done all your research and you say, I know the market value, I know that this particular work is valued at this, and with my experience, I can command this type of money. If they can't afford it, and then that means it's below your must. And if it's below your must, it means it's not the job for you.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I wanted to get into the CFO's thinking processes, because that'll help me with my negotiation process. Because if I ask for a certain amount and say the market value for whatever I produce in this area is a set amount, I know sometimes business owners will work together in unison to drive down the market value of whatever it is that you do by only paying the individuals that work in that particular field a certain amount, to make sure that the price don't go up and down too much. So if I don't really know what that company is producing or making on an annual basis and the revenue that my particular job produces, I feel like they can take advantage of me, which is why I would prefer to be a business owner, as opposed to working for another company. Or if I could, preferably I would work for or work with an African American owned business, as opposed to a European owned business or some other racist business. Because if I'm gonna be used or taken advantage of by anybody, might as well be taken advantage by my own kind, as opposed to someone else.
Well, Sam, man, I would say that the ultimate goal is to not be taken advantage of by anybody. And so in doing that, being extremely diligent in your research. I mean, that's the paramount. Knowing what the market calls for, shopping your services around to make sure, a gut check and knowing what your real value is. And then again, if that particular CFO, you can try to get in his mind that goes back to what I was telling you before, how, finances work. It's, again, everything coming in, that's revenue. And then all things going out, from investments to marketing to sales to buying components. And then also things going out with SG&A, with salaries and overhead. And then what's left is going to be your profit. And just recognizing that that's how a general company works. You can try to understand that business and see how, their sales are going to do, but you won't have the ability to look behind the scenes. The best thing you can do is do your research, understand what your service is valued at, and then you start your negotiation process there.
Okay,
Let
thank
me
you.
get to this. Let me get to this question real quick in the chat from Max. It says, when looking for a mutual fund, what are the key aspects of a good or successful mutual fund?
A good return rate. You want a solid return rate. I mean, Max, you asked a question earlier. What's better than just the saving money, in a traditional bank? In a traditional bank, you're going to get, pennies on the dollar, less than 1% of a return of that money sitting in a bank. Whereas if you can put it in a mutual fund, you can start seeing 5, 10, 15, 17% back on the returns. I mean, that's and 17. I mean, that's getting really high, and that's going to be really good. So it's one, the return rate, but when you start thinking about, when you say mutual funds, I mean, you got things like, stocks and bonds as well. And when you think about stocks and bonds, bonds are going to be a lot more safe. So it's less likely to lose your money in a bond. Stocks are going to be a little more volatile, but the return rate can be exponentially higher. And so what I would say with either one you do, if you play it safe, you're going to get a consistent return back on that bond. If you put your money in a stock, if the market does happen to take a hit, the biggest thing you can do, Max, is relax. Play it slow. Most times when people see the stock taking a dip, they want to pull their money out, and that's when they take a loss. The economy goes through natural cycles. And so when it goes through that natural cycle, wait it out and let it cycle back through, and you'll eventually recoup a lot of that money, if not more. So just play it safe, relax, play the slow game, and play the long game. And like I said, some good ones are stocks, bonds, and then ultimately what that return percent rate is.
Very good. So family, once again, want to be part of the conversation, link is in the description, the link is in the chat. Tap in. We're discussing, of course, the importance of financial literacy, negotiating your salary, and the art of the deal with, of course, marketing executive Anthony Tree Talbert. We, of course, met in graduate school many years ago, and we've been good friends ever since. But this is a conversation that's needed in the community. It may not be as sexy a conversation as many people are accustomed to us having on this platform, but it is needed and necessary.
And it's maybe not as sexy, but also it's intimidating because we don't have the competition enough. Jabril Africa, mentioned earlier that, definitely always want to negotiate your salary. You'll be surprised how much more you can get. Again, that goes back to knowing your worth and knowing the value of the job, and not being afraid to go into a room confident. And what are kids saying these days? Standing on business, right, and recognizing that, hey, I'm valued as such. And so I'm not going to overshoot, because if you overshoot, they're not going to take you serious.
Right.
But if you've done your research, you understand what the value of the role is, and you know the value you bring, standing on your business and saying, hey, going back to the example, the range is 120 to 80. I'm going to say 120. I'm within the range you stated. I'm on the high end, but I'm within the range, and I can tell you why I'm worth that. And if you don't want to start there, we can go negotiate down. I plan on leaving with 105 anyway, but I'm gonna start with 120.
Absolutely.
And then play within there. But to your point, the old adage, Jabril, closed mouths don't get fed. You got to ask it first. You got to put it out there first, and then be efficient enough in articulating why you're valued as such.
Absolutely. And of course, I was always taught many years ago by an elder who's now an ancestor. She transitioned that you need to be as comfortable talking about money as you are talking about the weather.
Exactly.
She told me that, this is part of that social capital that oftentimes we aren't getting, right? We know part of the ubiquitous nature of anti-Blackness is what? Sometimes we're the last to get information. We're the last to get particular resources. And this would be an example of, why is this important? Because one of the goals, and particularly when we talk about from a Pan-African frame of reference, is being able to improve the quality of life for African people, irrespective of where we are in the world. Part of that improving that quality of life is having access to capital. That could be liquid, right? Capital, and of course, it could be capital that you have in a non-liquid manner. But these are things that are of particular importance.
And to that point, Dr. Lumumba, I agree. Every talk about liquid and non-liquid capital. I mean, liquid's going to be like the cash you have in your account.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, that goes back to what a gentleman stated earlier, which is, we're encouraged to not manage our money well by spending it on other things, but you manage your liquid capital best by not buying, unimportant things,
Right.
frivolous things, frivolous spending. So managing your capital well in a liquid state, so you can put it into other things that maybe it's not liquid, but it's growing for you behind the scenes. Max, those are the stocks, those are the bonds, those are your home. Another thing I would tell the folks who are audience on this platform is the best way to grow wealth in your family is owning a home. And so how you own a home is managing your liquid capital first. And so that's the job you have. The first home that I bought it on a salary that was well below $100,000. I wasn't making a whole lot of money. It was below $85,000. But what I was able to do was manage my money well as far as saving. So when it came down time to have to put down a down payment, I have money in the bank, and I didn't spend that money on, and it's easy to talk about the big things, jewelry, clothes, but also food and some of the essentials. You have to, manage your money well in grocery shopping, opposed to going out all the time and buying Chick-fil-A and buying any other brand of food. Grocery shop and cook at home, and that's another way to manage your liquid capital well.
Very good, very good. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation. We got in for about another 5 to 10 minutes. If you have any questions regarding financial literacy, negotiating your salary, and of course the art of the deal, this is your chance. This is your opportunity. Once again, family, you all know here we discussed and of course interrogate the ubiquitous nature of anti-Blackness. We know that is an intransigent and it is irascible. And so one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we are developing a critical consciousness in which we are knowledgeable of these issues. We also know how to overcome these barriers, these structural and oftentimes systematic barriers that seek to inhibit Black progress and Black life. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. As you all know, you do not have to come up to be part of the conversation, and you can use a pseudonym if you want to protect your identity. Very quickly, if there was maybe one or two things that you truly would want to hammer home regarding financial literacy and just from an economic standpoint in the Black community, what would it be?
Thing one is acquire as much knowledge as you can, on the topic itself, around the topic, be a lifelong learner. I mean, be a consistent student, because the more you know, the more you can do. The more you can do, the more money you can generate for yourself. And that's where it starts, is generating that money for yourself, so you can have the power and the influence to be able to make the changes you want to see in your family or your community, and the world in general. So definitely being a lifelong learner. We had a question from Angela, and it says, what's the best way to budget for beginners? The best way to budget for a beginner is to not use the term in to not use the word in my response, but to create a budget for yourself. And so that budget for yourself is going to be, on the top line, how much money is coming into my household. So to make it simple, how much money do you make on an annual basis? And then subtract all your reoccurring expenses. If it's rent, if it's groceries, if it's entertainment, it doesn't mean be bored. I mean, if you buy Netflix, if you buy Hulu, but if it's entertainment, if it's your car note, subtract all of your reoccurring expenses, and then finally, like where does it net out? And so set a goal for yourself. And so do that exercise first without setting a goal. Do the exercise and just see where you net out. Are you net positive or are you net negative? If you're net positive, that means that you have money left over at the end of the month. If you're net negative, that means you're spending more than what you're making. But do that exercise first and then figure out, okay, here's where I'm at. And then, Angela, then think, what goal do I have for myself? Do I want to buy a home? Do I want to buy a car? Do I want to invest in the stock market? What goal do I have? And then understand what are the constraints of that goal. If I need a home, let's say I need to put down $20,000. Now I got to save $20,000. And so then put that into a plan that says, here's my budget. Now I have to adjust my budget to ensure that I'm saving net positive money at the end of the month. And then now I got to work 2-3 years or so to save that $20,000 over time. And then the biggest thing when you make that budget, Angela, is then going to be that budget is now your bucket. You created a bucket. You got that bucket in your hand. Now the hardest part is going to be ensuring that that bucket doesn't have holes in it. And that money or that water is seeping out from the holes, i.e., I keep going on vacation, i.e., I keep buying food outside, i.e., I keep going to the club and buying all these drinks. You got to be responsible. So again, top level, what money's coming in, what money's going out, what do I have to adjust for so I can reach my goal? Buy a house, buy a car. I just got to go. I don't want to spend it, but I just want to save $10,000, so I did it, and then I go from there. Now you got to adjust to see what do I got to change to make sure I'm net positive at the end of every month, and then you got to string those months together consistently. And so then Angela, and I'm sorry, Dr. Lamone, but then Angela, finally, you have to live a lifestyle, and one that's delayed gratification. And delayed gratification means maybe I'm not living the luxurious life that I want to live now because I'm trying to save for that $10,000. But then next thing you know, it's 20 years down the line, and I can retire at 55 or 60 because I've managed my money well for so long that now I got $3 million in the bank.
Mm-hmm. So we got another question from Snapshot Reviews. He has a question, and great, thank you for the answer. Is it sustainable to tackle debt and invest at the same time? I've been told no, but what are your thoughts?
Again, I would say I'm not, my thoughts aren't the only thoughts. However, I would say that first I would ask you, what debt do you mean? So are you talking, and this is rhetorical for now, but I'm going to speak to both. If we're talking house debt, car debt, then yes. I would say that no debt is good debt. However, you gotta weigh pros and cons on paying down debt. So say, for example, I have house debt. No debt is good debt, but is it more beneficial to pay that house all the way down now? So now I don't have any money in my account at all. Or I'm paying the mortgage on the regular monthly basis, but now I got money in my account to where I can invest. And so now, instead of paying the house down all at once and I have no money at all, I was able to invest in something and get 2 times back on my return. And I actually got more money in cash flow than what I would have had I paid my debt down. So if we're talking house debt, car debt, no, I would say those are financed for a reason. Make sure you get good finance deals on the car or the house on those loans. So you can pay those down and then spend money in other places that would be more beneficial for investment that they give you a larger return. If we're talking credit cards or school debt or a debt like that, I would say yes, you want to pay that debt down first because that type of debt is another hole in your bucket. You're getting all this money coming top of the bucket, but then you just got holes in it and it's falling out from credit cards, school debt, and all the other things.
Very quickly, family. Snapshot Reviews. I think you got a lot of questions, even some comments. So tap in, be part of the conversation. Max, you could tap in as well. Once again, family, if you're watching Lumumba Speaks, the Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe we could gain the competitive advantage by always betting on Black. And of course, Equaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. And we're having a great conversation with Anthony Tree Talbert, and we'll get into a little later why they call you Tree, right? Importance of financial literacy, negotiating your salary, and of course, the art of the deal. And family, if you don't know, they call him Tree because when he was in college, what position did you play?
I played tight end.
He played tight end, so you know, it was you was inline tight end, correct?
Yeah, I was a hand in the ground tight end. I was a traditional tight end, around 257. 6'5", 257. Big guy. So because I was a big guy, I had the name Treetop. Snapshot reviews. I see you got a couple comments in here. If you're comfortable, man, hop on. And we can chop it up really quick. But trying to read your question, I'm trying to coach some elders in my family about automating bill payments to save time, but they are paid weekly and are nervous about not having enough when the bill lands. What's the best approach to support them on this? And I would say you got to remember there's generational mentalities, and if you're speaking to elders, having automated bill payments is easily 15 years or younger, if not 10 years or younger. Nowadays, credit card companies allow you to set up automated bills, but before it was on you. And if you paid, you paid. If you didn't, you didn't. And so they have a certain mentality based on the generation they're in. So maybe there's some education that comes with the ease of having automated bills set up. But I think they're concerned with, hey, if I write my check right now, I know I got money in the bank. Whereas if I put it on automated, I may not have the money in the bank. I understand the mentality. What you could do is start them off like small and saying, hey, we won't put every single bill on automated. We won't put the house note, the card note, the credit card note all on automated. Let's just do the credit card. Let's just do the car payment. And so they can get comfortable with the idea that it's automated and knowing that they're going to have money in the account. If you think about humans in general, humans struggle with planning long-term. Humans struggle with looking down the line. And they're more comfortable with knowing that I have my nuts in my possession right now. And then when you need one, I'll give you one. I won't just let you dig in here whenever you want to, just because it's automated. When you need it, I'll give it to you. But that's because we're conditioned to want to make sure we have what we need to survive. But if you slow roll them into it and do it one at a time, they'll see that they'll be just fine with automated payments. And as far as you referring to bad debt like credit cards and personal loans, it's in my opinion to handle that debt first. So, I'm in my mid-30s and I didn't buy a home until I had the bad debt things gone. Personal loans, credit cards managed, even school loan. My school loans were done. And mind you, I was on scholarships. I had a very small school loan from grad school. But even then, those several $1,000s, I didn't invest in anything until I had those things done, because that was, in my opinion, that was a hole in my bucket. So I managed those things first. And honestly, what that could do is create a level of discipline for you as well. It takes discipline to pay down that bad debt, credit cards, loans, and so forth. Personal loans, car and house are different, but personal loans, it takes discipline to pay those things down, so you can build up the fortitude to successfully manage money by paying the bad debt down first, and then you get yourself in position to make really strong investments moving forward. But remember, when you're planning financially, again, we struggle with planning long term. A 3-year plan to pay down bad debt, that's a good thing. That's good. And so now, if you got a 10-year plan and years 1 through 3 is paying down the bad debt, just work the plan. And then years 4 and forward, now you can start making investments. DJ Sandman said, does Mr. Talbert know about the LOT program, LOT? He would be a great asset to the program. I don't know about the LOT program. Maybe send some material on it and we can look into it.
Absolutely. So once again, family, link is in the description, link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the conversation. If not, we're going to get ready to let Mr. Talbert go. Definitely appreciate you lending your time and expertise on this Saturday, this Pan-African Saturday afternoon. we're going into the evening. But once again, I thought that this was a important conversation to have here on the platform, and of course, wanted to give you an opportunity, of course, to ingratiate yourself with the viewing public. And as you know, I would argue that you're our financial expert here at Lumumba Speaks, and of course, Beacon Networking. You'll be welcome anytime. Let me see here. It says, should I continue to dollar cost average in a stock even if I got in at a very great price?
I mean, I would say, do you have a financial advisor? If you do, I mean, see what they think. If it were me, I mean, I would have to look into it. I'm not sure. Sure. And I would say it's okay to not be sure in the moment. Look into it, do some research, and make a better decision, tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, family, appreciate you once again tapping in. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. If you can stay on with me afterwards, Tree, that'd be great. But appreciate you all. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on black. Peace.
Thank you.
Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on black. Peace.